We are currently in Georgetown Cemetery in Georgetown, Kentucky. Right behind me is the grave of Tent Girl, the girl who was known as Tent Girl for a very long time. This is a crazy story with crazy facts, and even the circumstances in which the identity were known were very odd themselves. Just an amazing story, a sad story, a horrific story. Let's take a look together as we stroll through Georgetown Cemetery in Georgetown, Kentucky at the life of the girl known as Tent Girl. Forgotten by time, lives ended by the hand of someone else in cold blood. We finish their stories because they were not able to finish their own. You're watching Vintage Murder, a Whit Docs series. She was discovered in 1968, laying beside of the road, covered in some sort of a tarp, some sort of a canvas. She became known as Tent Girl. Tent Girl had no identity known to us for 30-some odd years. Her husband had said that she left with another man and no one ever heard from her again. So how did we discover who she was? How did that happen? What happened with the husband? There are a lot of facts to uncover as we look and visit the final resting place of the girl who for over 30 years was simply known as Tent Girl. As we stroll through Georgetown Cemetery, it can be a tough thought just thinking that not too far from here, the body of a young lady was found wrapped in a heavy green canvas, much like a tent. There was a man in the area named Wilbur Riddle who was searching the area for glass insulators. While he was scavenging, he came upon the tent-like material and to his horror discovered the decomposing body. At this time, especially in 1968, the materials needed to positively identify this young lady, especially through advanced scientific methods, simply wasn't there. And not only that, there was absolutely no trace of her identity, no trace of anything. This tragic homicide occurred in 1968. However, it would take until 1971 for Tent Girl to be buried. With no leads, no identity, no family, no anything, her remains were laid to rest. As a final plea for knowledge, facts, and identity, a stone was made and placed at the gravesite with details about her disappearance and her physical appearance, along with a sketch of what she might have looked like. I told you at the beginning of the video that her husband had claimed that she had left him for another man. That, along with the more recently added stone bearing her name, shows that we did indeed find out the identity of Tent Girl. But how? How did that happen? Get ready for an unbelievable story. Meanwhile, as the Tent Girl case raged, another issue raged with George Earl Taylor. Taylor had to explain where his wife, Barbara Ann Hackman Taylor, had disappeared to. You see, not only had George Taylor not filed a missing persons report, he brushed off her disappearance as leaving him for another man. Let's introduce a new person to our story, the person that I would call the key to this story. Mr. Matthews had married a daughter of the man who found the Tent Girl. The discovery of the Tent Girl had profoundly negatively impacted the life of Wilbur Riddle, and the case thoroughly intrigued his son-in-law, Mr. Matthews. In the infancy of the internet, when forums for missing persons were beginning and the information superhighway allowed for a quicker sharing of facts, Mr. Matthews went to work, determined to positively identify Tent Girl, going as far as to create his own website for that sole purpose. Meanwhile, the Hackman family, Tent Girl's family, had posted a description of their own on a missing persons website. A female relative about 15 miles from Lexington, Kentucky, living there with her husband and her infant daughter, had vanished. Mr. Matthews contacted the point of contact for that post with the overwhelming evidence that this was indeed the correct person. Tent Girl's family contacted the Scott County Sheriff's Office. Everything was matching all the way down to the gap between her front teeth. The body was exhumed, and now, with the aid of DNA testing, we would know for sure. On April 26, 1998, the positive match was made. Barbara Ann Hackman. This wasn't a case of somebody disappearing with nobody looking for her. Far from it. She had a loving family, a family desperate to find their loved one. I'm sure they mourned. I can't even imagine what they went through. The family arranged for the body to be reinterred right here, where we are today, and added the bottom stone, which reads loving mother, grandmother, and sister. A few things to go over here at the end of the video. One thing that struck me and really hit me was the inscription and how it referred to her as grandmother, and how saddened I was that Barbara never knew that she would be a grandmother while in this world. This case has been chronicled on several different mediums, including the true crime series Who Killed Jane Doe and several podcasts. And I'm sure the overwhelming question on your mind, what about the husband, George Earl Taylor? He died of cancer in 1987 and had no idea that she was ever identified. He was never charged because of the lack of identification, but is now considered to be the prime suspect. Today, we honor you, Tent Girl Barbara Ann Hackman. You were visited today, and you were remembered. Another sad story, another young and innocent life cut short. Another vintage murder. Forgotten by time, lives ended by the hand of someone else in cold blood. We finish their stories because they were not able to finish their own. You're watching Vintage Murder, a Whit Docs series.